Hey guys, Britton from Saber Royale here once more. I'm here to showcase my Vintage Graflex today and let you know that it is for sale as well, so I'm going to go through the details on that. Please ignore the computer sounding sounds like an old printer because it is actually my 3D printer going on. I've been waiting to do this video for a time when I'm not running something, but honestly it's constantly running. There's not really a good time for me to stop it when I'm trying to get a lot of stuff printed right now. So sorry about that, please ignore it. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. So here's the Vintage Graflex. All parts of it are vintage. The bubble strip is vintage. It might not look very clear to you. That's because I've got some tape under there, just like kind of like some regular Scotch tape. But basically I just put that there in multiple layers to give it some diffusion. And in case you are wondering, I'll show you why in a little bit. The grips are Calfet vintage brown ones that I sanded and painted black. Not only did I sand them and put the edges on them, which you should be able to see there, which I did mark off to give it the right 30-degree angle, but then I also kind of by hand rounded it just a little bit to give it more of that actual screen look that you see. But yeah, I also went and found a 1.5 inch like Dremel attachment or screwdriver attachment, a sanding wheel, so that you might be able to see it here. Hopefully, let me actually make sure you can see that. Hang on. Yeah, here we go. So that I actually put a radius on these. Now I know that that's not screen accurate, but man, I don't like the way that normally they would come out, kind of like little wings almost. So this really sits flush to the Saber a whole lot better. So anyway, yeah, as you can see here, this is a vintage D-ring that I pulled off of an old suitcase. And I've got it pretty tight, which is nice. I am using a Robertson screw. I did screw that into here. That is not held on with a magnet or anything. So sorry guys if you wanted it held on with a magnet. You can always replace that with a rivet if you feel more so inclined or whatever. I do have the proper, sorry, let me refocus. I do have the proper Fulmer eye for the A&H as well. And I think that's pretty much everything. The pins are not round, they are the, I don't know what you'd say, the other ones. They're not the round pins. Although I don't know if that is actually determined in A&H. I don't think so, as far as I'm aware. Even though I installed it with a Solos Hold blade holder using a 7/8 inch blade holder. I still was able to, no problem, put as many vintage parts back in there as I could. So it definitely looks vintage. I do have a blade plug in there. I used the vintage parts for that as well, of course. It is pretty snug currently, so I've used something to grip on this without it gripping too tight, just to pull it out after you get the eye out. The eye is holding it in place as well with the spring. So I think that's all there is to mention about this as far as the outside goes. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and mention this. There was something special I wanted to do with this one. I didn't want to have to constantly open up the whole Saber to flip a kill switch to turn it on, since I am using, in fact in this one it's actually a teensysaber, but you know, Smoothswing Profi board. It's all the same software, firmware. So anyway, yeah, I didn't want to have to constantly open it up. So I was able to find a DPST switch similar to the ones that Solos Hold uses for this latching switch, and he puts his model is designed to use one as like a momentary, like you flip this down and it hits it, and that's what turns it on and off or something. At least that's how Jordan Eugene described it to me. But yeah, anyway, so I wanted to go a different route. So I found a DPST switch that I could use as a kill key. And basically, you just have to pull this down, and it is pretty tight. So I use both hands generally. There's a little click.
This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight.
And then it turns on. Of course, it's not incredibly loud, being that I don't have any sound vents. It's a lot louder if you take this off. In fact, you'll probably hear some random clashes and and stuff, because at the moment I haven't configured it completely. I do have it pretty freaking loud to where it's rattling a little bit, so I'll have to tune that down a bit. But yeah, this way you never actually have to open it up unless you're going to charge the battery, which, by the way, it is a removable cell in a Padawan style Goth chassis, which I can show you guys. I don't open it up too often because, as I mentioned, this is diffused, so we'll go ahead and just say it. I do have a neopixel strip. Maybe you can kind of see it in there. I've got a small strip of neopixels in here to light this up, because I thought that would look pretty cool, and I think it turned out really great. So currently I have this installed with only only 2 fonts really, but 5 different presets. That way you can have some variation. The first one is teensysaber's. Sorry, Canon. I think I screwed that up. Anyway, you have his his light side Smoothswing font, which is kind of a Graflex based font, and then I also have his Episode 8 Ray Graflex font. So you'll get to hear those. Hopefully, I hope you can hear them over my printer. Again, I'm so sorry about that, guys. So let's go ahead and fire this up. So as I said, first one, I just keep it blank to give it more of that Canon look. So yeah, because maybe you don't want to always have it lit up, right? I guess I'll back up a little bit. I'm kind of filming from behind the camera at the moment. Oops, sorry. I currently need to also configure it for the blaster block because I only am using 1 button. So I'm using a 1-button setup with a teensysaber. So I have to finish the configuration so that the blaster block will be able to be used. That's not a problem. It's very simple to do with teensysaber and Profi board. And it's actually my current favorite way of setting them up so that you only need 1 button. Why use 2 if you don't need to use 2, right? So, on to the next one. Here we go. Yeah, so I've got that set to light up blue, like the blade, which of course it's a neopixel setup. Of course I don't have a blade in there right now, so I can show it off closer to the camera. But yeah, it doesn't do anything special as far as effects go. Of course I could program it to do that, but right now it's just set to light up and turn off. And we have that on the next font as well, but some different colors, more like a battery level indicator, which I think looks really nice, and gives it a really cool effect and look, even though it's not Canon. And then I don't have it really any different on the other ones. The first one here for Ray is also blank, nothing, if I turn it on. This one I believe is just blue as well. Yep, but deeper blue, so I'm not mixing blue and green, that's just regular blue like the blade would be. But really, I just think it gives it an awesome look. So it turned out really great. I'm really happy with it. And then, as I mentioned, kill switch is up here. So to turn it off, just flip it back up. No problem. Every now and then, I've noticed once so far since I've been using this, and I haven't used it much. It's mainly been on display, but so far, there's a little tab in there that is pressing on, or the tab that's connected to this is pressing on that DPST switch for a kill switch. I've only once had to go in through the glass eye and kind of push up on it a little bit with like a flathead screwdriver, because I think it was just bent up a little too much, so when this was being pushed down, it wasn't making contact. So I bent it down, and now it's making contact no problem. So I don't expect that to have to be messed with in the future, but it is just a piece of like sheet metal, so perhaps in the future it might need to be pushed back down a little bit. But it is pretty strong and resilient, so I really don't see that being a problem. Shoot, I'm sorry, I had something else in my head, and now I can't think of what it is. Oh yeah, so I did have to cut into the top half of this a little bit. You can't see it when the saber is together because it's covered by the clamp, but that was the only way, of course, to get anything up into here, which I imagine you'd have to do anyway. I'm sure you'd have to do it, because I had to, if you were putting switches in here. So really, it's no different. But let's go ahead and open this up so I can show you guys. I might have to step away from behind the camera a little bit. So yeah, we're going to And it is tight. Hang on, sorry. It's not tight, it's snug. So there we go. Let me set this aside. Yeah, so it's just a Padawan golf chassis, really simple, with a teensysaber in it. If I were to take this off, you'd see some of the wires up here because they, just come straight out of the Padawan up into where they need to go. So I'm not going to take this off right now because then you'd also have the wires under here. They are just attached, routed from this back up through the top and under here. So taking this off can be a little more of a pain, but not really too much. But there's really no reason to do it because your battery's right here. Removable battery, you can pop it out, charge it, no problem. So there's really no reason to remove this unless there's like some kind of maintenance required, though, again, that shouldn't really be necessary unless you're really like taking a pounding to this thing. So yeah, I don't see it being a problem. But yeah, pretty basic install with a 31 millimeter 3-watt Saber Essentials speaker. This thing is incredibly loud. In fact, let me go ahead and turn it on for you. You'll see the difference between having, and if you've ever had a Vintage Graflex before or one without sound vents, you'll see the difference. You'll know the difference, but you'll see the difference here. So yeah, let's go ahead and flip that back on.
This is the weapon
There we go.
of a Jedi
I was able to do it with one hand. Oop, sorry, came off screen there. Anyway, let's gosh, that's like ear splitting for me even. And it'll probably rattle so much that, like I said, I need to turn it down a little bit because it's so loud it's shaking my board. Yeah, it's especially without the bottom half there to hold it. It is so freaking loud. So yeah, I need to turn that down a little bit. But it's just, man, it sounds incredible. Yeah, see, I can't even display it. I need to turn it down so much. Whew, that is loud. All right. So that is the internal chassis. Basic, simple. The way that I like it, unless you're looking for a really expensive crystal chamber, which do look cool, but man, get expensive. So I like to do it this way. Oh, sorry, I gotta open it back up. I like to do it this way. And there it is. Put back together, no problem. Make sure this looks, yeah, it looks good. All right. And then, yep, see that's coming out a little bit. Just holding it down. Have designed it so that the clamp lever, look at it real quick, make sure it looks good, doesn't go down flush, just like in the movies as well. So I just push it down till it gets kind of tight. Of course, you don't want to be pushing too much because you don't want anything bad to happen to your bubble strip. Again, vintage bubble strip. Everything's vintage on this one. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. Looks lovely, gorgeous, would make a fine addition to any collection if I can be so cheesy to say a Star Wars quote like that. So yeah, I'm looking at selling this currently without a blade. I do have a blade available if somebody wants one, but currently, to try and keep the price a little bit lower without a blade, I'm looking at $1,250 for all of this. If you want a blade, we can talk about that. So if you're interested, please send me a message, Britton Woolley. Private message me. You can also send a message to my business page, Saber Royale, and I will answer you there. If you have any questions, please ask. And I hope you guys enjoyed the reveal of my vintage Graflex build. Thanks, guys.